The unusual encounter. The Deep Space Research Station floated in the darkness, orbiting a planet no human had ever visited. Captain Ryan Cole stood on the bridge, staring at the glowing red dot on the radar screen. A distress signal. Weak, but still active. Unknown ship detected, the AI system announced in a cold, mechanical voice. Ryan narrowed his eyes. The signal had come from a derelict spaceship, drifting in the black void. No known ID. No response to hails. Just silent. That was never a good sign. "We're going in," Ryan said. His crew exchanged nervous glances. Lieutenant Harris, the communications officer, hesitated. "Sir, what if it's a trap?" Ryan gave a half smile. "Then we deal with it. Get the boarding team ready." Minutes later, Ryan, Harris, and a small security team stepped into the docking bay. The unknown ship was cold and lifeless, its metal hull covered in scratches and dents. The airlock door hissed open with a painful creak. Inside, the ship was dark. Emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows along the walls. The air smelled of burnt wires and something else, something organic. "Stay close," Ryan whispered. They moved forward, weapons ready. The hallways were empty, silent except for the distant hum of broken machinery. Then they found it. A body. A girl. She lay on the floor, motionless, silver skin glowing faintly under the dim lights. Her face was almost human, except for her slightly elongated ears and the faint shimmer of her hair, like strands of liquid metal. She wore a dark bodysuit, torn in places, revealing patches of smooth, silver-tinged skin. Ryan knelt beside her. "She's still alive." Harris frowned. "Sir, she's not human." "No, she wasn't." Ryan tapped his comm. "We're bringing her aboard." Back on the station. The alien girl lay on the medbay table, breathing slowly. The ship's doctor, Dr. Ilara Monroe, ran a scanner over her body, her expression shifting from curiosity to something close to disbelief. Ryan watched her closely. "What is it?" Ilara hesitated. "Her anatomy is strange. She's similar to us, but different." Ryan folded his arms. "Different how?" Ilara sighed. "For starters, she has 3 hearts." Silence filled the room. Harris raised an eyebrow. 3? Ilara nodded. "And that's not the only thing. Her internal structure is, well, unusual. I don't even know what half of this does." Ryan looked at the girl again. She seemed peaceful, almost normal. But she wasn't. "What else?" he asked. Ilara hesitated before answering. "There's something else she has 3 of." Ryan frowned. 3 of what? Before Ilara could answer, the girl's eyes shot open. First contact. Ryan took a step back as the alien girl gasped for air, her silver eyes darting around the room. She tried to sit up, but her body was weak. "Easy," Ryan said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. The girl blinked, confused. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no words came. Then, in a soft, uncertain voice, she whispered, "Where am I?" Her accent was strange, but the words were clear. "You're on a human space station," Ryan said. "We found you on your ship. You were unconscious." The girl's breathing slowed. She looked at her hands, her body, as if checking if she was still real. Then her gaze locked onto Ryan's. "You are human," she said. Ryan nodded. "That's right." Her expression shifted. Confusion. Then, something else. She stared at him intensely, scanning his face, his body. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she muttered, "You are missing something." Ryan frowned. "What?" The girl's eyes darkened. Her silver fingers curled into the sheets beneath her. She looked almost disturbed. "You," she repeated, "are incomplete." A cold shiver ran down Ryan's spine. "What the hell does that mean?" Harris muttered. The girl shook her head, as if realizing she had said too much. She looked away, suddenly refusing to meet Ryan's eyes. "Who are you?" Ryan asked. Silence. "What's your name?" A long pause. Then, finally, she whispered, "Riva." Ryan exchanged a glance with Ilara. This was getting stranger by the second. "Okay, Rava," Ryan said carefully. "We just want to help. Can you tell us what happened to your ship?" Rava hesitated. Her hands clenched. She looked at Ryan again, this time with something close to fear. "They are coming," she whispered. Ryan felt his stomach tighten. "Who?" Rava's silver eyes flickered with something unreadable. "If they find me here," she said, her voice almost shaking, "they will take you too." The room went dead silent. Ryan didn't know what was worse, the fact that she was afraid, or the fact that she wasn't talking about herself anymore. Waking the unknown. Rava sat on the medical table, her silver fingers gripping the thin blanket wrapped around her body. Her breathing was steady now, but her eyes, those strange, shimmering silver eyes, darted between the humans surrounding her. She looked like she was preparing to run, even though she had nowhere to go. Captain Ryan Cole studied her carefully. His instincts told him she wasn't a threat. At least not yet. But there was something unsettling about the way she looked at him. Like she wasn't just observing him, she was analyzing him. Lieutenant Harris stood near the door, arms crossed. He wasn't convinced. "Sir, we have no idea what she is or why she was alone on that ship." Dr. Ilara Monroe ignored him, still focused on the readings from her medical scanner. "Her vitals are stabilizing. Whatever happened to her out there, she's recovering fast." Ryan turned back to Rava. "You said they are coming. Who are you talking about?" Rava didn't answer. Her fingers twitched, tightening around the blanket. Ryan took a step closer. "Look, we're not your enemies. We found you floating in space. Your ship was damaged, and you were unconscious. We saved you. The least you can do is tell us who they are." Still, she said nothing. Ryan sighed and ran a hand through his short brown hair. He was used to tough negotiations, but this was different. He wasn't dealing with an enemy or a rival. He was dealing with a complete unknown. "Rava," Ilara said gently, "you're safe here." Rava finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Nowhere is safe." Ryan frowned. "Why?" Rava lifted her gaze, staring at him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve. She hesitated, as if weighing her words. Then she asked something unexpected. "Why do you only have two?" Ryan blinked. "Two what?" She tilted her head slightly. "Hearts." The room fell silent. Ryan exchanged a glance with Ilara. "Because that's how humans are," he said slowly. "We have one heart. Just one." Rava's expression shifted. Confusion. Then disbelief. "That is incorrect." Harris let out a dry chuckle. "Incorrect. Lady, I think we know our own biology." Rava ignored him. Instead, she stared at Ryan, her silver eyes filled with something close to pity. "I thought humans were different, more advanced. But you are incomplete." Ryan felt a cold sensation creep up his spine. It wasn't just what she said. It was the way she said it. Like she knew something they didn't. Ilara cleared her throat. "Rava, your anatomy is different from ours. Not better, not worse, just different. Humans function perfectly fine with one heart." Rava shook her head. "No," she whispered. "Not always." Her words sent a shiver through the room. Ryan decided to push further. "Who are you, Rava? Where are you from?" She hesitated again, then finally answered. "I am a third." The humans exchanged confused looks. "A third what?" Ryan asked. Rava's grip on the blanket tightened. "The third ones. We are the balance." Ryan's patience was running thin. "Balance for what?" Rava's expression darkened. "The ones who made you." The air in the room seemed to grow heavier. Ryan kept his face neutral, but his mind raced. "You're saying someone made humans?" Rava nodded, as if this was obvious. Long ago. The first ones created. The second ones destroyed. The third ones. Correct. A strange silence settled in the room. Harris muttered under his breath, "Oh great, she's a religious nut." Rava turned her silver gaze toward him. "Your kind is flawed." Harris scoffed. "Excuse me." Rava ignored him and looked back at Ryan. "Not your fault. You were left unfinished. And now, they want to finish you." Ryan felt his stomach twist. "Who wants to finish us?" Rava's expression was unreadable. Then she whispered two words that sent chills down Ryan's spine. "The harvesters." The warning. Ryan took a slow breath, trying to process what he just heard. "Who are the harvesters?" Rava's hands trembled slightly. "They are the ones who take." Harris frowned. "Take what?" Rava looked at him, and for the first time, genuine fear flickered in her eyes. "What you are missing." Silence. Ilara's voice was quiet but firm. "You mean they add something to us?" Rava gave a slow nod. "They have done it before." Ryan's pulse quickened. "Before? When?" Rava hesitated. "You do not know." Ryan clenched his jaw. "Know what?" Rava looked at him like a child watching someone about to step into a trap. "It has already begun." Ryan's stomach dropped. "What do you mean, it has already begun?" Rava's silver fingers curled around the blanket. "They come in silence. They take. They change. Some do not return. Others return. Different." Ilara's face paled. "You mean they've been taking humans?" Rava nodded. "For many, many cycles. Some of you, right now, are not what you were born to be." The room felt like it had lost all its oxygen. Ryan forced himself to stay calm. "How do you know this?" Rava's voice was barely a whisper. "Because my kind tried to stop them." Ryan's heart pounded. "And?" Rava's silver eyes locked onto his. "We failed." For a moment, no one spoke. The tension was suffocating. Then, the emergency alarms blared. "Captain," a voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessel just dropped out of FTL, right outside the station." Ryan turned on his heel, already moving toward the bridge. "They're scanning us." The voice continued. No hails, no response. Just a pause. Then, the voice returned, this time shaking. "Sir, they just sent a message." Ryan reached the bridge, staring at the screen. A single message appeared on the monitor. "Return TE third one, or BERACT." Ryan slowly turned his head back toward Rava. She was already standing, her silver eyes filled with something Ryan didn't want to see. Resignation. "They have found me," she whispered. And then, almost too softly to hear, she added, "And now, they have found you too." The truth beneath the skin. The arrival. The space station trembled as the alien vessel loomed outside, its massive form casting a shadow over the observation deck. The external scanners struggled to analyze its structure. It was unlike any known ship in human records. Smooth, almost organic, with shifting, pulsating patterns of black and silver. It didn't look built. It looked grown. Captain Ryan Cole stood on the bridge, his jaw clenched as he read the message on the main screen again. "Return to third one, or BERACT." His crew was tense, waiting for his command. Lieutenant Harris paced back and forth, checking the station's defenses. Dr. Ilara Monroe stood near the medical console, her eyes darting between Ryan and Rava. Rava, the silver-skinned alien girl, hadn't moved. She sat on a chair, her arms wrapped around herself, her expression blank. But her hands trembled slightly. "They found me," she whispered again, almost to herself. Ryan turned to face her. "Who are they?" Rava exhaled slowly. "The harvesters." Ryan motioned for her to keep talking. "You said they take people. They change them. What does that mean?" Rava hesitated, then finally spoke. "Your kind was left incomplete. The first ones made you, but something interrupted their work. The harvesters believe they are fixing you. They find the ones who are ready, and they." She paused, struggling for the right word. Ryan leaned forward. "They what?" Rava swallowed hard. "They add." Ilara's face paled. "Add what?" Rava shook her head. "Not what." "Who?" A cold silence filled the room. Harris scoffed. "Okay, I've heard enough. This is insane. We don't need fixing. Humans are fine just the way we are." Rava finally looked at him. "Are you?" Harris opened his mouth to argue, but then something happened. The external sensors flickered. The alien ship was no longer alone. Another vessel had arrived. Then another. And another. One by one, more ships appeared, surrounding the station in perfect formation. Ryan felt his pulse quicken. "Ilara, tell me we're scanning this." "I am," Ilara said, her voice shaking slightly. "But I don't understand it." Ryan turned to her. "What do you mean?" Ilara swallowed. "These ships, they're not just scanning us. They're scanning specific people on the station." Ryan's blood ran cold. "Who?" he demanded. Ilara's fingers flew over the console. Then, after a tense pause, she turned toward him with wide eyes. "You, Ryan." The truth revealed. A heavy silence filled the bridge. Ryan felt a strange pressure in his chest, as if the walls were closing in. His entire crew stared at him. He forced himself to speak. "Why me?" Rava's voice was quiet. "Because you are one of them." The words hit him like a physical blow. Ryan took a slow, deep breath. "You're wrong." Rava shook her head. "No, I see it now." Ryan clenched his fists. "See what?" Rava hesitated, then lifted her silver hand toward him. "Let me show you." Ryan hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to step back, to reject whatever she was offering. But something inside him, a deep, unsettling curiosity, kept him still. Rava placed her fingers on his forehead. The moment she touched him, Ryan's vision went white. The forgotten past. Images flooded his mind. A dark void. Stars blinking out, one by one. A massive shape drifting through space, watching, waiting. Then flashes of people, humans, standing in silent rows, their eyes blank, their bodies different. Their veins pulsed with an eerie silver glow. And then Ryan saw himself. He was a child, standing in a bright, sterile room. Strange figures surrounded him, humans, but not quite. Their voices were calm, soothing. They told him he was special. They told him he had been chosen. And then, pain. A searing, twisting sensation inside his chest. Ryan gasped, his mind snapping back to the present. He stumbled backward, nearly collapsing. His breath came in sharp, ragged gulps. His crew rushed toward him, but he held up a hand to stop them. His heart was pounding. No, not pounding. Pulsing. Ryan pressed a hand to his chest. His heartbeat was wrong. Too strong. Too fast. Too many. A sickening realization hit him. It wasn't just his heart. There was more than one. The awakening. Ryan looked at Rava, his hands shaking. "What the hell did you do to me?" Rava's expression was unreadable. "I only showed you the truth." Ilara's voice was barely a whisper. "Ryan, what are you?" Ryan forced himself to steady his breathing. "I don't know." The alien ships outside the station began to shift. Their formations tightened. A deep, thrumming sound echoed through the hull of the station. The harvesters were getting impatient. Then a voice, cold, mechanical, and layered with an unnatural harmony, echoed through the station speakers. "Captain Ryan Cole, you are one of U.S. Return to U.S. Embrace completion." Ryan's mind raced. He had two choices. He could run, take his crew, escape, and leave the station behind. Or he could face the truth and find out what he really was. He looked at Rava. If I don't go with them, what happens? Rava hesitated, then answered, They will take everyone. The station's alarms blared. The harvesters had begun their boarding sequence. Ryan had seconds to decide. The hunters arrive. The beginning of the end. The station trembled. Deep, rhythmic vibrations pulsed through the metal structure as the alien fleet tightened its grip around them. Ryan Cole stood frozen on the bridge, his breath shallow, his mind reeling. The revelation that had just unfolded inside him was too much. He wasn't just human. He wasn't human at all. The voice of the harvesters still echoed in his head. You are one of us. Return to us. Embrace completion. He clenched his fists. No, he wouldn't accept that. He wouldn't be one of them. Captain, they're trying to override our docking systems, Lieutenant Harris reported, his hands flying across the console. They're forcing a connection. Ryan snapped out of his trance. Block it. Seal every access point. I don't care if you have to fry the circuits. Harris nodded and worked faster. But the ship shook again, harder this time. The vibrations weren't just from outside anymore. They were coming from inside the station. Ryan turned to Rava. She was sitting motionless, her silver eyes locked onto the screen that displayed the fleet outside. They're not going to stop, are they? He asked. Rava shook her head. No. A deep metallic clang reverberated through the station. Something had latched onto their hull. Ryan's gut tightened. They're boarding. The infiltration begins. The security feed flickered, showing dark, shifting figures moving through the outer corridors. They weren't walking. They were gliding, their forms sleek and unnatural. Harris paled. I don't like this, Captain. Ryan grabbed his sidearm. Nobody does, but we have to move. Ilara looked at him, concern on her face. Ryan, what if they're here for you? Ryan hesitated. The question hung in the air like a noose tightening around his throat. He exhaled slowly. Then they'll have to fight me for it. He turned to Rava. Can you fight? Rava hesitated before answering. Yes. Good. The station's red emergency lights flashed as security protocols activated. Doors locked, but it wouldn't hold them for long. The harvesters were inside now. The first attack. The first breach happened near the lower decks. Security teams were already in position, weapons aimed down the hallway. The air felt wrong, heavy, charged with something unnatural. Then the harvesters came. Tall, inky black forms with elongated limbs, their eyes glowing with a faint silver hue. Their bodies were humanoid, but wrong. They didn't charge. They just appeared. One moment, the hallway was empty. The next, the security team was screaming. Weapons fired, energy blasts lighting up the darkness. The creatures barely reacted. Some staggered, but none of them fell. Then, with unnatural grace, the harvesters struck back. They didn't use weapons. They used their hands. One soldier screamed as a harvester touched him, and his body changed. His veins darkened, his eyes clouding over. He convulsed, his limbs twisting, reshaping, until his screams stopped, and he stood up, different, altered. The remaining soldiers panicked. They kept firing, but now their own fallen comrades were rising to join the enemy. Ryan and his team arrived just in time to see the last few defenders get overwhelmed. His stomach clenched. They're converting them. Rava whispered, This is what they do. Ryan's grip tightened on his gun. Not today. The last stand in the corridors. Ryan, Rava, Harris, and Ilara took cover behind fallen debris. The harvesters moved methodically, scanning for more humans. Ryan had seen enough. Now, his team opened fire. Rava moved with unnatural speed, her silver hands flashing as she struck down the nearest harvester, her touch sending shockwaves through its body. Ryan fired shot after shot, aiming for the head. It slowed them down, but it didn't stop them. Ilara tossed a modified energy grenade down the hall. The explosion rippled outward in a pulse of bright white light. The harvesters screeched. For the first time, they recoiled. Ryan didn't hesitate. Go. Now. They ran, moving fast through the corridors. But the harvesters weren't done. They were adapting. Rava suddenly gasped, stumbling. Ryan grabbed her. What's wrong? She clutched her head. They're calling me. Ryan's blood ran cold. What? They're inside my mind, she whispered. They know we're running. Ryan's heart pounded. Can you fight it? Rava's silver eyes flickered, and for a terrifying second, she looked almost like them. Then she shuddered and shook her head. Not for long. Ryan knew what that meant. They were running out of time. The impossible choice. They reached the upper decks, but the station's defenses were failing. The harvesters were overwhelming them, and Rava was struggling to resist their influence. Ryan had to make a decision. Run. Fight. Surrender. Then, a new voice crackled over the comms. Ryan Cole, you were chosen long ago. Stop resisting. Ryan's breath caught. This voice wasn't mechanical like before. It was human. A chill ran down his spine. Who are you? A pause. Then the answer came. You already know. Ryan's hands clenched. His heart pounded. 1, 2, 3 beats. The truth was coming for him, and he wasn't sure he wanted to know. But there was no turning back now. The next move was his. The race against time. The voice in the dark. Ryan's pulse pounded in his ears. 1, 2, 3 beats. The voice over the comm still echoed in his mind. Ryan Cole, you were chosen long ago. Stop resisting. The words sent a chill through him, not because of their meaning, but because of who had said them. The voice was his own. A perfect copy. For the first time in his life, Ryan felt something he rarely experienced. Fear. He swallowed, gripping the edge of the control panel. Who the hell are you? A short pause. Then the voice responded. I am what you were meant to be. The bridge fell into dead silence. Ilara and Harris exchanged uneasy glances. Rava, however, stared at Ryan, not in fear, but in understanding. They are already inside you, she whispered. You felt it, haven't you? Ryan clenched his fists. He didn't want to admit it, but he had felt it. For years, there were moments, flickers of strange awareness, like his body knew things before his mind did. He healed from injuries faster than normal. He could go days without sleep and still function. His reaction time was unnaturally quick, his instincts razor-sharp. And now, the harvesters had come for him, because he was one of them. Or at least, he was supposed to be. The pursuit begins. The station groaned under the pressure of the invasion. Every system was failing. Harris checked the scanners. They're closing in. Fast. Ryan forced himself to focus. What's our escape plan? Harris hesitated. We don't have one. Ryan clenched his jaw. Then we make one. He turned to Rava. How do we stop them? Rava hesitated, then exhaled. We don't. Ryan narrowed his eyes. Not the answer I was looking for. She turned toward the large observation window. The massive harvester mothership loomed outside the station, its surface pulsing like a living thing. The dark tendrils that had latched onto the station pulsed with an eerie silver glow. Rava's voice was steady, but grim. The moment they latched onto this station, it was over. They don't just attack. They consume. They absorb everything into themselves. This station is already part of them. Ilara's face paled. You're saying we're inside the harvesters now? Rava nodded. A sickening realization hit Ryan. Then they don't need to break in. They already have, Rava confirmed. The lights flickered, and suddenly, the station's very walls began to shift. The station is alive. The bridge controls melted before their eyes. The metal structures twisted, reforming into something. Organic, pulsing black tendrils slithered across the walls, like veins pumping liquid darkness. The station was no longer just a station. It was becoming part of the Harvester fleet. Then the whispers started. Soft, lingering. Not words, but a feeling pressing against their minds. Ryan gritted his teeth. Block it out. Ilara shuddered. I don't think we can. Harris suddenly screamed, clutching his head. There, inside my mind. He gasped. I see them. Ryan grabbed his shoulders. Harris, focus. You're stronger than this. Harris's eyes rolled back for a moment, then snapped forward, wild and glassy. He wasn't looking at Ryan anymore. He was looking through him. And then, in a voice that wasn't his own, Harris whispered, It's time to let go. Ryan's grip tightened. Fight it. Harris blinked rapidly, sweat dripping down his face. His breathing was ragged, uneven. But then, with a sharp inhale, he snapped back. He shuddered. I don't know what that was. Ryan did. It was the beginning of the end. A desperate plan. Ryan turned to Rava. Can we destroy the ship that's connected to the station? Rava's expression darkened. Destroying it wouldn't stop them. They will just absorb the wreckage and keep coming. Ryan exhaled sharply. Then what's our move? Rava hesitated before answering. There is only one way to sever the connection. Ryan crossed his arms. I'm listening. Her silver eyes met his. You. A tense silence followed. Ryan frowned. Me? Rava nodded. The Harvesters are not attacking the station because of its technology. They are here for you. If you go to them willingly, they will take you and leave the others. Ilara's eyes widened. Absolutely not. Harris shook his head. Terrible plan. Worst plan ever. Ryan ignored them, his mind racing. You're saying I can buy us time? No, Rava said quietly. I'm saying you can end this. Ryan stared at her. Explain. Rava exhaled. You are not fully human. There is something inside you, something that connects you to them. If you embrace it, you might be able to control it, to turn it against them. Ryan clenched his fists. Or it might turn me against you. Rava nodded solemnly. Yes. For the first time, Ryan hesitated. He wasn't afraid of death, but this wasn't death. This was becoming something else, something he wasn't sure he could come back from. Ilara stepped forward. Ryan, don't do this. Harris nodded. We'll find another way. Ryan turned to Rava. If I do this, will it work? Rava hesitated. I don't know. Ryan exhaled sharply. That's not helpful. But deep down, he already knew his answer. This wasn't just about him. If he didn't do this, the Harvesters would keep coming. They wouldn't stop with this station. They wouldn't stop with his crew. They would go to Earth. Ryan turned toward the airlock. Open it. Ilara grabbed his arm. Ryan, please. He gently pulled away. It's okay. But it wasn't. And they all knew it. Into the unknown. The airlock doors slid open. Ryan stepped inside. The cold metal floor beneath his boots felt heavier than ever. Beyond the force field, the Harvester mothership loomed, waiting. The whispers in his head grew louder, urging him forward. Ryan took a deep breath and stepped into the void. The moment he left the station, a tunnel of pure darkness formed around him. Tendrils of liquid shadow wrapped around his limbs, pulling him toward the Harvester ship. He didn't resist. He let them take him. And as he vanished into the abyss, the last thing he heard was Ilara's broken whisper over the comms. Come back to us. Then the connection cut off, and Ryan Cole was gone. The final stand. The abyss takes him. Ryan Cole was falling. Not in space, not in the way a human mind could understand. It was deeper than that. He wasn't just moving through darkness. He was becoming part of it. His body twisted in ways it shouldn't. His vision flickered. He could still feel his skin, his bones, his breath, But something else was there now. Something watching. Something waiting. The harvesters were not just creatures. They were a collective. A vast intelligence spanning across time and space, threading into the very fabric of existence. And now Ryan was inside it. He gasped as a wave of thoughts, not his own, flooded his mind. You are here, at last. The voice was everywhere. Inside him. Around him. Through him. Ryan clenched his fists. His breath was ragged. I didn't come to join you. A low hum vibrated through the darkness. You already have. A sudden flash, light, blinded him. His body jerked, and suddenly he was standing, inside the hive. Ryan opened his eyes and found himself in an impossible place. It was a vast, endless chamber, black walls pulsing like veins under skin. Silver-blue light flickered in twisting patterns across the surface, illuminating figures that barely looked human anymore. They stood in perfect rows, silent, watching. And then he saw them. The others, hundreds, thousands, standing in eerie stillness. They were human, or they had been. Their skin was laced with silver, their veins glowing faintly. Their eyes were like polished glass, reflecting something deep and alien. Ryan took a slow step forward. His boots didn't make a sound. He felt wrong. Too light. Too strong. Then he saw himself. A reflection. No, not a reflection. A copy. It stepped forward from the crowd. It was him, but more. Taller. Sharper. Its skin shimmered with silver veins beneath the surface. Ryan's blood ran cold. The copy smirked. Welcome home. The betrayal of the flesh. Ryan's body felt off. Like something was shifting inside him. Like his very DNA was deciding. He clenched his jaw. I'm not one of you. The copy tilted its head, amused. But you are. Ryan lunged. His fist connected with the copy's jaw. But instead of breaking, the entire body rippled, like a stone thrown into liquid metal. The impact sent a shockwave through Ryan's arm, forcing him back. The copy barely reacted. It straightened, shaking its head. Still resisting. Pointless. Ryan gritted his teeth. If it's pointless, why am I still me? The copy smiled. A cold, inhuman smile. Because you were never meant to be just one thing. You were always meant to be more. The walls around them shifted. The figures standing silently in the chamber suddenly moved. They stepped closer. Ryan's instincts screamed. His heartbeat pounded. 1, 2, 3. And then the voice of the collective spoke again, not through the copy, but through everything. You were designed for this. Let go. Join us. The burning sensation spread through Ryan's chest. He gasped, clutching his ribs. Something was changing. He could feel it. He was becoming. The station's last hope. Back on the station, Ilara paced the bridge, her hands shaking. It had been too long. No signal. No sound. Ryan was gone. Harris gritted his teeth. We can't just sit here. Rava stood by the observation window, her silver eyes glowing faintly. He is at the edge of choice. Ilara turned to her. What does that mean? Rava didn't blink. Either he fights them, or he becomes them. Ilara's heart clenched. Then we have to get him out. Rava shook her head. No one has ever returned once they enter the collective. Harris slammed his fist against the console. Screw that. If anyone can do it, it's Ryan. Ilara took a breath. Then we have one option. She turned to the controls and activated the station's last resort weapon, a ship killer charge. It was meant to take down entire fleets. If Ryan wasn't coming back, then neither were the harvesters. Rava's expression darkened. You would kill them. Ilara clenched her fists. I'd rather destroy him than let them turn him into one of them. Silence. Then Rava whispered, You may not have to. Because suddenly, The harvesters screamed. Ryan's choice. Inside the hive mind, Ryan stood at the breaking point. The voices clawed at him. Accept. Become. You are more. His skin burned. His vision blurred. He could feel it now. His three hearts beating in sync with something larger. Something vast. Something eternal. And for a split second, he considered it. He could feel what it would be like to let go, to transcend, to leave behind the limits of flesh and become part of something greater. It was so easy. Then he heard it. A whisper. Not the collective. Not the harvesters. His own voice. Come back to us. Ilara's voice. His crew. His family. Ryan clenched his fists. And then, with all the strength he had left, he rejected the connection. No. A shockwave erupted from his body, shattering the hive's hold on him. The chamber rippled. The figures around him collapsed. The copy of himself screamed, its form twisting in agony. And Ryan ran. Escape and fire. On the station, Ilara's hand hovered over the launch button for the weapon. The station trembled. Harris checked the sensors. Something's happening to their ship. Rava's eyes widened. He's fighting them. Ilara's heart pounded. Is he winning? Before anyone could answer, a single transmission crackled over the comms. I'm coming back. The station exploded into action. Ryan was running through the harvester ship, dodging the shifting tendrils trying to drag him back. A single escape pod lay ahead. He dove inside. The doors sealed. The pod fired. And as it shot out into space, the harvester mothership began to collapse. The hive was breaking, and Ryan had won. The aftermath. The escape pod crashed into the station's docking bay. The doors hissed open. Ryan stumbled out, gasping for breath. Ilara was there in an instant, catching him before he fell. Ryan. He looked up at her. I told you I'd come back. She almost hit him. You're an idiot. He laughed. Harris let out a breath. Damn. Welcome back, Captain. Ryan turned to the observation window. The harvester fleet was retreating. For the first time, they were afraid. Ryan smiled. The war wasn't over. But this battle was humanity's victory. A new threat rises. The return to silence. The harvester fleet was gone. The station hung in the cold void of space, drifting in the aftershock of battle. The damage was everywhere. Scorched walls, torn conduits, emergency lights flickering like dying stars. But they were alive. Ryan Cole sat on the edge of a medical bed, his uniform torn, his skin covered in faint silver scars from his time inside the hive. Ilara stood over him, arms crossed. You should be dead. Ryan smirked. Good to see you too, Doc. She ignored the joke. I scanned you. Ryan exhaled. And Ilara hesitated. Then, softly, she said, You're still changing. The room fell silent. Harris leaned against the wall, running a hand through his short hair. I knew it. You came back. Different. Ryan's fingers curled into a fist. He could still feel it. The hum beneath his skin. The unnatural rhythm of his three hearts. He had escaped the hive. But had he truly left it behind? Rava stood by the observation window, her silver eyes reflecting the remains of the battle. They won't stop. Ryan looked up. What do you mean? She turned to him. The harvesters lost, but they are not defeated. They are adapting. Ryan's jaw clenched. They're learning. Rava nodded. They have never been challenged before. You are the first, and now they know you exist. Ryan exchanged a glance with Ilara and Harris. A deep, heavy realization sank into his chest. He hadn't just escaped them. He had made himself their greatest threat. And that meant they were coming back. The aftermath. The station's surviving crew worked tirelessly to restore power, running diagnostics, sealing breached sections, and trying to process what had just happened. Ryan sat in the war room, staring at a holographic map of space. Earth lay at the center. Ilara pulled up the fleet report. We lost 2 ships. Over a dozen crew members were taken. Ryan closed his eyes. Taken. That word felt heavier now, because he knew what it meant. They weren't dead. They were something else now. He opened his eyes. We need to warn Earth. Harris exhaled sharply. Warn them about what exactly? That we're being hunted by an alien race that no one even knew existed. That they're upgrading people against their will. Ryan stood up. Yes. Harris scoffed. You think they'll believe us? Ryan's expression darkened. They won't have a choice. Because the harvesters weren't done. And this time, they weren't coming in secret. They were coming in force. A dark revelation. Hours later, Ryan stood alone in his quarters, staring at his reflection in the mirror. He lifted his shirt. His skin was marked with faint, silver streaks running along his ribs. They pulsed subtly, almost imperceptibly, but he could feel them. The remnants of the hive. It was inside him. And something else was too. Ryan took a slow breath, closed his eyes. And then he heard it. A voice. Not from the station. Not from outside. It was inside his head. A whisper. Faint, but unmistakable. We are not finished. Ryan's eyes snapped open. His reflection was still there. But for a split second, just one heartbeat, he saw something else. Something watching him. Something smiling. The warning. Ryan stormed into the control room, his pulse hammering. Open a direct line to Earth, he ordered. Harris blinked. Sir, we can't just. Now. Harris hesitated, then nodded. He keyed in the command, and moments later, a secure channel opened. The screen flickered. Then, a stern-faced Admiral Kensington appeared. Captain Cole, she said. What the hell is going on out there? Ryan exhaled. Where did he even start? The station was attacked, he said. Not by raiders. Not by pirates. By something worse. The Admiral frowned. Worse. Ryan's voice was steady. A fleet. A species that sees us as unfinished. Kensington's eyes narrowed. Unfinished. Ryan nodded. They've been taking people. Converting them. Making them. More. The Admiral's expression hardened. More what? Ryan's jaw tightened. More like them. A long silence followed. Then Kensington sighed. Cole, do you have any idea how insane this sounds? Ryan didn't blink. Yeah, but it's real. The Admiral studied him for a long moment. Then, finally, she spoke again. If what you're saying is true, then Earth isn't ready. Ryan exhaled. Then we need to get ready. Kensington's face was unreadable. How much time do we have? Ryan looked at Riva. She met his gaze. Then, softly, she whispered, not enough. The final twist. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. Ryan turned to his crew. We need intel. We need to understand how they think, how they operate. Ilara hesitated. Ryan, we barely survived the first wave. How do we fight an enemy that evolves? Ryan exhaled. We change faster. Rava stepped forward. There is one place that holds the answers you seek. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Where? Rava's silver eyes darkened. Their first harvested world. Harris's stomach dropped. Wait, you mean they've done this before? Rava nodded. Ryan narrowed his eyes. Where is it? She hesitated. Then she whispered, closer than you think. Ryan's breath caught. Then the station's long-range sensors flared with an incoming signal. A distress call. From Earth. Ryan's blood ran cold. He turned to the screen. The message played, crackling with static, but the voice was clear. Terrified. They're here.